Anger, rage, violence. Are they different? And what's the use in teasing them apart? There's a lot of mistrust of anger in our culture. And, to a large degree, fair enough. A lot of anger that comes out in the moment is from a long time ago. A lot of anger that comes out in the moment is disproportionate to the event or action that sparked the anger. Many of us will be familiar with that from our entire lives, our family of origin, workplaces, partners, relationships, family, the whole bit. And I want to get clear on what the differences are and how they interact, in order to find a way to access our healthy anger, so that we're not being sideways, passive aggressive, or we're not flashing our anger, directing our anger towards people who it doesn't belong to. Let me get a little bit around here. We might get a slightly bit of the light. Sorry, I've got a bit of a back issue. There we go, that's better. That's way better. A healthy anger is in the moment, right? It's in the moment, it's from the moment, it belongs here and now, or the very recent past. And the sensation, I can feel it in my body. It might be tight and hard in my belly. It might be kind of a flash through my body and into my face. Anything, right? Everybody's going to feel that anger in a different spot, I think, likely. Fingers and hands, perhaps, toes and feet. So when the anger comes through, like if I react from that place of anger, I'm going to do damage. Right? And unless I'm in a situation where I need to protect myself immediately, it's often not necessary. If I am in a place where I need that anger to physically protect myself, then okay, that's a different area. So healthy anger is in and of the moment. It comes from something's happened now or in the recent past that has and I've responded with a flush of sensation and emotion. You all know what anger is, right? Unhealthy anger comes out sideways, right? The anger, I'm angry at my kid, or I express anger at my kid when I'm not actually angry at them. It's just a little momentary thing, but it's sideways, and the anger is coming from somewhere else. And so in this model that I've got, working with now, when I swallow my anger, and I've been swallowing my anger for a period of time, maybe a long time, maybe a lifetime, there comes a point where there's no room left. Right? When I swallow the anger, there's a little boundary violation over here. Somebody's called me a name over there, so I feel disrespected by somebody over there. Somebody cut in front of me when I was in a rush somewhere. Somebody was rude to me. Each time I have the little flash of anger and I swallow it down, and there's plenty of messages in our culture about don't be angry, keep your cool, don't make a scene, anger is dangerous. A lot of messages around anger. Swallow it, swallow it, swallow it. It doesn't go anywhere, right? We just push it down, we pretend or we deny that no, I'm good, I'm not angry, I'm not upset. So we push it down, we deny it's there, we suppress it, and over time, it just gets more, and like that space inside becomes fuller and fuller, and eventually there's nowhere left for it to go. Not even eventually, right? Just every time we start swallowing those angers, and we suppress them and we deny them over time, and not much time necessarily, that becomes rage. right? So a difference here, like anger, so I'm looking at myself, not the camera. Anger has a clear target. Rage will be like either non-directional or in every direction. Right? And I won't be full of rage continuously. It's there, it's under the surface, but I'll know it because I'm throwing my anger at targets that aren't really the true target. I mean, in the moment, I probably believe they are because they did this and they did that and whatever. But it's very likely that the level of anger, sideways anger, is going to be totally out of proportion to the triggering event or action. In the relationship between rage and violence, right, so the rage sits in there and it'll come out this way and that way. When it comes out, the starting point of that process is what I'm going to call violence. Right, when that rage becomes a desire to hurt. Right, the desire to hurt and then the action of hurting. I'm going to call that pathway. That's kind of a discrete set of reactions or actions. The desire, when the rage becomes and it happens very fast, right? So it's not like necessarily we'll get this immediately, but over time, or if we're like able to think back on the times, it's like, if I'm able to slice that down, stretch that time out from when I felt the anger and then I did the thing, there'll be a moment or a series of moments where the desire to hurt arose. And so in the model I'm working with here, it's not physical violence necessarily. It can be, but more verbal, emotional, energetic violence. And it can be as simple as a fuck that guy. With the desire to hurt. So when I feel scornful or I want to mock somebody or put somebody down or give them a little, mate, you should have known better. Because I'm frustrated or exasperated. Why am I doing that, actually? So I want them to know that I'm disappointed in them because I want them to have a reaction. Right? And that gets that energy out of my body and hopefully into theirs. Now, as somebody who lived with a lot of rage, totally oblivious, I didn't know. I didn't know that there was this boiling, roiling, seething, people around me you would have known, for sure. This boiling, roiling, seething mass of energy inside of me. Super judgmental, hypercritical, and like criticism, like not discerning, but like criticism. Like that shouldn't have happened that way. And wanting to, and often, I was too scared to often say that out loud, but internally I wanted to punish that person. And that would often leak out sideways. And it still does. I still have this like try to mock somebody. Sometimes it just pops right out. And then I'm like, who the fuck am I to be mocking anybody, for a starter? And secondly, that's not who I want to be. I don't have any desire to make other people feel bad. Like I heard my own thought then, even if I think they deserve it. Even if I think they deserve to feel it, I think they deserve to feel bad. Right, so any of the emotions or sensations or actions that follow from that, in this model, I'm calling violence. Right, they deserve to feel bad. They deserve to hurt. Right? There's a desire in me or belief in me that they should hurt. And if I think they should hurt, it's a very short step to thinking I can be the one to make that happen. Make sense? And so I live with this soiling, roiling, seething mass of energy in my body. And like I say, I wasn't aware of it, but I'm sure plenty of people were. But so much sideways stuff. So much sideways abuse. Maybe subtle, maybe not so subtle. But a lot of it, a lot of impact. There's a lot of power in that rage, right? And the rage in me, my whole upbringing, I was swallowing these little angers. I didn't have autonomy or agency. For an example, when I was 12, my mum made me take down a poster of Simon Le Bon from Duran Duran because it wasn't Christian. It made me so fucking mad. So fucking mad. Totally innocuous, like a dude who, was clean living, not into drugs or partying or anything. Not that I knew this at the time, right? That's just like one example from when I was 12, and all of this, like the control from our parents. Don't do this, don't do that. It's got to be da-da-da-da-da. So all of these natural impulses to explore and play and be who I am, overpowered, shut down. So swallowing a lot of angers, because I was powerless to enact them. Anytime I did get angry, like bam, I get shut down. And a polyvagal theory, truth, reality, whatever, tells us that when this, anger is a fight-flight response, and when that is continually thwarted or unsuccessful, that leads us into collapse, right? The flop. And that's characterized, or part of that is a sense of helplessness and hopelessness. And so this helplessness and hopelessness pervades our being and pervades our outer world as well. And it's weird, or it's difficult for me to even cognitively kind of get it. So there was rage and the helplessness and hopelessness. And I suspect now that I'm just here in this moment that it was more like from one to the other. And my understanding is that rage is essential to move out of the helplessness and hopelessness into a place of action, so that we can change. I believe there are many of us, men especially, but I'm sure women and non-binary folk, live with this rage and the impacts of it. Sorry, with that wincing and stuff, I'm pretty screwed back at the moment. A really important thing to note, to know, to understand, appreciate, is that when I start swallowing those angers, I'm going to be turning that rage on myself. I'm going to if I can't direct that anger outwards, I'm going to direct it inwards. I'm so weak. I'm a piece of shit. Why can't I stand up for myself? Why am I doing everything wrong? The messages that I'm going to be getting from like not being able to naturally express. And so the anger, I'm going to turn it on me. So the anger or the rage that is like going sideways and being set off with the most minor of things has already been happening for a long time. and it will be from me toward me. Super painful. Super painful, like a self-reinforcing loop, or like a spiral, downward spiral. It's really interesting that the helplessness and hopelessness next to the rage, and where do they sit in relation to each other? Do they swap? Is the rage sitting there underneath, or is the rage something that can be ignited to move us through the helplessness and into a place of action? In terms of working with it, like if this is you and you're like, yep, I understand that swallowing the angers, and then that like, and then like, and then the moments of like, screw that person, screw that person, screw that institution, screw that politician, screw that business person. It's my pathway anyway started with tapping into that rage, and not in a just like, rah, I'm just going to get mad about shit kind of way. It kind of did happen that way. Actually, I didn't know what was happening when I accessed that, but rage, terror, kind of together. But it's important. It can be really useful to know what the triggers are, what the rage is about. Who fucking crossed my boundaries again and again and again? Who didn't let me be who I was again and again and again? Some of it will be at us, and it's likely more properly directed at people in our lives who hurt us, and we were not powerful enough to defend ourselves. And the reason it can be really helpful to have an accurate target is because it gives us a cognitive framework. This thing happened, and that thing wasn't okay. Right? Not like, oh, it was my mum, and I love her and I forgive her. Sure, that can come later, right? Or whenever. But it's not about the person doing it necessarily. This thing happened to me and it wasn't okay. This person did this to me and it wasn't okay. And then using that, and if you're a collapser, like, I have been, you might need some support to step up and be like, you know what? Fuck that. Fuck that. And I'm not saying you direct it at the person. If it happened 50 years ago, don't direct it at your mother now. Like, she's not going to be able to take it, like, at all. And she's got her whole own story going on. Right, but like identifying the target and like not, like it's at them, but not them physically, or, you don't pick up the phone and be, whatever. I'm talking about, working with somebody or with a group, and you like, yeah, that's, this anger in me is directed at my mum. God damn it, she let me down. My dad, he wasn't there. What, that person who like fucking violated me, like that. And keep going. Right? Keep going. But also recognizing this rage is impacting me. Right? It's impacting me. Yeah, this stuff happened. Yeah, it hurt, and I'm just like tied up in goddamn knots. So part of that expressing it is recognizing, you know what, it's my responsibility and it's holding me back. It's hurting me. Get it out. Get it out. Get it out. Empty yourself of it. And find a way to take responsibility for bringing something new into that space. Something new and true and beautiful. Yeah, it happened to me. It's not happening in me anymore. I deserve love and care and respect and consideration. I respect myself. I love myself. I'm worthy. Whatever it may be. And in amongst all of this, your boundaries are going to come online. Right? You know what? I'm getting really clear about the impacts of that behavior and the rage, and I'm not willing to go there again. And it's not a one and done kind of vibe, or at least it wasn't for me, right? I didn't just express my rage once and then it was done. Get triggered. I would get triggered so much by so many people, and I kept doing my work around that. And fortunately, I've got I'm part of a group, and we've got this incredibly powerful process that really is like, it's the shit. Getting that out and recognizing, oh my God, I'm just giving my power away. Every time I get, I'm just hooked. I'm hooked. I'm not a choice. I didn't choose it. It's just like, I'm gone. And so, going through this process again and again and again and again and again with all the different people, whatever, and slowly getting the rage out. And as the rage emptied out, starting to notice, shit, there's still a lot of violence in me. Right, there's still a big part of me that wants to hurt. And not consciously, not like, yeah, I want to hurt people. Happens. Right, if I'm doing it, or even there's a part of me that likes to, or not even, there's a part of me that hurts people, is maybe a cleaner way to say that, or a more accessible way to say that. There's a part of me that hurts people. And when I did that, the payoff, the sensations in my body, right? The amount of energy, that feeling of righteousness. Beautiful. Oh. Super addictive. Super addictive. And so then that became another whole, and still is a series of work around unhooking from that righteousness and the glory. That's what glorious would feel like. And you can probably draw a connection between that, the amount of potency and glory feel in those moments, and there's a direct connection between that and the helplessness and the hopelessness, because what could be more potent for somebody with a history of hopelessness and helplessness than that searing alive capacity to direct very defined beams of fucking at somebody else. Yeah, so as the rage dissipates over time, gives us more access to healthy anger. I'm feeling angry. What am I angry about? Right, I haven't been standing up for myself. Or I haven't been taking the actions I know I need to take. actually angry at myself. Right. And if I don't catch it, if I don't make a shift internally, then I'll start doing that violence on myself again. All right, and if I think I deserve the violence, I'm gonna give it to myself. And nothing ever changes in that environment. Right? Nothing ever changes. Nothing is ever different. It just speeds up and intensifies. That's it. That's it. When I have access to my healthy anger, I can feel the sensations of anger, and I don't need to act on them. Right? I don't need to let them flow through into immediate action. I can take a pause. Yep, I'm angry, and I'm sophisticated enough in myself to know that if I act from that place, it's not going to be the outcome that I'm after. And so I'm gonna keep the energy of the anger. It's unhooked from the violence. I'm going to use that. I'm going to be with that as I do have the conversation that I want to have, right, with the person who's I feel is crossing my boundaries or like disrespecting me, whatever. And then I can come into that conversation clean and clear. And so the outcome from that is far likelier to be an outcome that I want in a broader sense, right? In a longer term sense, right? If I've unhooked from that, back in the day, or even when I'm a little bit dysregulated, the outcome is I want them to feel like shit, and that's not going to resolve any conflict ever. It might stop the behavior over there, but the conflict isn't gone. It's just internalized, right? And then it becomes impossible to work with. Yeah. I wonder if this is making sense. Anger, rage, violence. I want to be clear on the violence, scorn, derision, wanting to shame or embarrass somebody or humiliate somebody. And learning to be honest about that. Oh, no, I didn't want to shame them. You did. Is there, how do I track that? Can I get curious about that? Instead of defensive, no, I didn't mean that. I did that. It's part of me that did that. Part of me that came online and did that. Difficult to navigate if you're new to this stuff. It's super difficult. However, if you find somebody like me or another coach or potentially therapist who knows this realm, they will be able to support you to discover yourself and find ways of being that are more attuned, more in line with the person that you truly are. Because that's the real fucker. When I've learned to, I just didn't start swallowing my angers. I got taught that. I got taught that and shown that in no uncertain terms. No uncertain terms. But when I can learn to stop swallowing my anger, deal with my rage, unhook from my violence, I can become closer to who I actually am, who I truly am. And I'm no longer at the mercy of the world and the people in it and the actions. They can just, like I see road rage like crazy sometimes. It's like, what? Somebody just like didn't indicate. And then that'll be me for like hours. That's not freedom. It's not joy or peace or anything good. Like it felt good. Because it was one of the few ways I could access that, a sense of feeling strong and powerful. What was I saying? Difficult area to navigate on your own, especially if you're new to all of this. Hopefully, the distinction between healthy anger, rage, and violence, and how they operate together, or where they, how they interact. Hopefully, that's useful. And I'm not an expert on domestic violence or physical violence at all. Not saying this is a definitive model. It's something that I'm working with at the moment, thinking about and exploring, and it's it's kind of accurate for my experience so far. And it's far from complete, right? There'll be many exceptions and differences and other perspectives that are probably equally valid on that. But I wanted to share here hopefully it's useful to get an understanding of yourself, or maybe people in your life. Yeah, I think that's it from me. Thanks for your time. 32 minutes, that's a long watch. Appreciate it. And I'll see you on the next go round.